I am truly so sick and tired of the limitations that people put on themselves and others, and how consciously or subconsciously you pick up on these limitations and make that your reality. So, I am starting this episode by making this really bold declaration that whenever you've been told that you have got to look for someone in your life who actually completes you, I call the biggest BS on that. And I've also identified 3 to 4 other statements that are passed down from our older generations as these mantras for your life, or this belief that really gets in the way of you living your biggest, boldest, happiest life. Now, we won't have the time to get into those details on this episode because there's a specific goal that I have in mind for this specific episode, but I'll be sure to cover that in the upcoming episode. So come back here and listen to that. In 15 years of being married and 16 years of being with my husband, one thing that I have come to realize is this: don't ever look for somebody who completes you, but look for a person who is going to challenge you every step of the way and who's going to continue to challenge you to expand. Because here's the biggest truth that nobody is actually telling you, and you perhaps are not even realizing yourself, especially as ambitious working moms. You've got to hear this. I am going to tell you what nobody else is actually telling you, because they think that your career and your partnership are two separate things, but no, they are not. Because trust me when I say, I work with some of the most successful, powerful, high performing women. But what they don't realize is that because of the partnership that they have with their husbands, their growth is being limited. And when I peel the layers and present it to them exactly how that's happening, they're always shocked because they never connect the dots on how one is impacting the other. And if you too have been operating under this assumption that your career and your home life are two separate buckets, then you're in for a wake up call in this episode, or rather, should I say, a rude awakening.
Welcome to the Inner Golden Hour podcast, where dreams take flight, mind, body, and soul get a serious holistic upgrade, and personal evolution transforms into a shared spiritual adventure. Consider this your dedicated sanctuary for exploration, self discovery, unfiltered truths, diverse perspectives, and some much needed heart to heart real talk. Hi, I'm your host Kusum. I'm a mindset and manifestation life and business coach. Think of me as that best friend you never knew you needed. The one unafraid to call out your BS, deliver a dose of tough love, and hit you with some truth bombs. This podcast is more than just a series of episodes. It's a transformative experience guiding you to dig into your truths, ditch those old limiting beliefs, and fully embrace the real authentic you. It's an invitation to align your mind, body, heart, and soul, to dream big, to explore what truly lights you up, and to manifest a reality that surpasses your wildest imagination. Envision this space as the magical golden hour when everything radiates with a breathtaking glow, revealing the depths of your inner world. Now, come along and immerse yourself in a perpetual flow of inspiration, insights, and massive transformation across all areas of your life. Let's explore the extraordinary, one enlightening episode at a time.
Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another special episode on the Inner Golden Hour podcast with me, your host, Kusum. And today I am diving into one of the most controversial subjects that you could perhaps talk about. And I will also help you break out of some of the myths. And without further ado, I am going to kick off this episode by making some bold declarations. Starting with, look for someone who completes you. I mean, this used to be something that I used to wholeheartedly believe in, but over the years, as I have done the deep inner work, I call BS on this statement, this most popular opinion that people dole out as advice when you are looking for any kind of relationship partnership. Because this statement almost makes me feel like we are an half finished project, as if that other person is going to walk into our lives and complete this half finished project. So, over the years of being in a relationship, being a partner, being a wife, what I have come to truly understand is don't look for someone who completes you. Instead, look for the person who's going to challenge you to expand. And here's why I make this bold declaration, because I am an ambitious woman. I am an ambitious working mom. And I've also come to realize that your career will only go as far as your primary partnership allows it to. And if you too have been operating under this assumption that your career and your home life are two separate buckets, then I hate to break it to you that this episode is going to feel like a rude awakening, because I'm going to tell you what no one is telling you. You cannot compartmentalize, you cannot professionalize, and you cannot just simply lie to yourself that one aspect of your life is not affecting the other aspect of your life, because when one bucket is leaking, the other one loses pressure as well. This is the case 100% times. And there's absolutely no exceptions, whether you admit it or not. Because if there's tension, resentment, disconnection, or any kind of instability at home, your nervous system knows it, and it's going to reflect in your leadership as well. Because let's face it, you don't have two separate nervous systems. You just have one nervous system that you take from work to home and home to work and back and forth. That's exactly why I say this with full certainty that a high performance career requires a high functioning home base, because a secure, evolving partnership is what gives you that psychological safety to take massive risks in life, whether personally or professionally, because you cannot be bold in the boardroom if you are fighting for survival at the dinner table. And you cannot make courageous, brave decisions at work if you're emotionally bracing at home. And this is the most fascinating part that I have noticed over the years, that many of my clients, these are high performing women who will spend thousands of dollars on executive coaching, masterminds, leadership programs, scaling strategies, etc., 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 which is all amazing, because I love women who invest in themselves and in their growth. But at the same time, what I've also noticed is that these very women treat their marriages like legacy software. Now, let me explain before you wander off being all confused and blank. When I say legacy software, what I mean is something that you've installed years ago and assume that it will just keep running in the background without any updates, without any system checks, or without any upgrades. Meanwhile, you're expecting next level performance from yourself when the software that's supporting you hasn't been updated for years. Right? Does your phone work as efficiently as it could and should if you've never updated it for years? No, exactly how we are as well. And that's why when I tell you your career will only go as far as your primary partnership allows it to, I am speaking from a ton of experience from my own, as well as from working with high achieving working women like you. And what inspired me to record this podcast episode is that just this past Friday marked 15 years since my hubby and I got married, and 16 years since we met as two ambitious, highly opinionated, and slightly intense humans in our own ways who had no idea who we would become 15, 16 years down the line. And as I was talking about this in various aspects, whether it was on my Instagram, whether it was on my LinkedIn post, whether it was in my newsletter, one thing led to another. And it made me want to get on the podcast and record this episode as I take you behind the scenes. And I figured I'd peel back the layers on how these 5,475 days of refining, recalibrating, renegotiating identities, as well as rebuilding our visions while consciously choosing growth that has led us to multiple career pivots with two kids and traveling, exploring 40 plus countries together alongside business launches, identity deaths and rebirths, and expansions that we could not have ever predicted. And why this is important for you is I have shared this in multiple ways, multiple platforms, that this life that I live right now is beyond my wildest imagination, my wildest dreams. But I subconsciously, unconsciously manifested some of it, and exactly why I loudly and proudly share about our relationship, my marriage with my husband, of how beautiful it is, because I was told I was crazy. I was told that a love like whatever I was envisioning was only fantasy and it's fairy tale. It doesn't happen in real life. It's only possible in movies and yada, 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 yada. But somehow my soul, my heart refused to buy into any of the limitations that other people were putting on me because of their own limitations and because of their own circumstances and their own relationships and their own lives and what they had experienced in life. And I somehow, without even me realizing, rejected all of that. And I never once made that my reality. And guess what? 15 years later, here I am living my best life with my soulmate, with my husband, with my partner in crime, with my co conspirator. And in this episode, I want to share with you how, one, you have the power within you to design the life however you want it to, regardless of your current circumstances, regardless of what your relationship might look like right now, regardless of what anybody has ever told you. You have the power within you to design a life that is true to your heart's desire, as long as you don't give up on that vision for the rest of your life. And I also want to draw parallels and show you how some of the things that we have done in our own lives has in fact helped us fulfill on our vision, fulfill on some of our biggest, wildest dreams. And my invitation to you as you listen to this episode is draw parallels to your own life and see what insights and lessons and takeaways from this episode can you bring into your own life, whether personal, professional, or any other aspect, because every aspect of your life, as I already mentioned, is interconnected and you cannot separate one from the other. With that, one of the biggest realizations that I've had over the years of being married to my soulmate is this, that if you think a soulmate is someone you find, you are totally misunderstanding the assignment. A soulmate is not just someone you find once and you're done. Instead, a soulmate is someone you intentionally scale with, someone you evolve with, someone you renegotiate your identity with, and someone you choose again and again and again and again and again and again and again through every single version of yourself and through every single version of him or her. Now, if all of that has got your undivided attention, let's dive into the episode. Right, so let me ask you something that might feel absolutely uncomfortable to you and your inner being. If your marriage directly determined your next promotion, your next business milestone, your nervous system stability, and even your kids' future relationship patterns, would you actually invest in it differently? Yeah, sit with that for a sec. Because here's what nobody is understanding, because your marriage directly, whether you admit it or not, in fact, does impact all of the things that I just mentioned and then some. Because here's what I've realized after 15 years of marriage, that your primary partnership is not a side character in your life. It is either your greatest growth accelerator or your most invisible ceiling. And that's the part that many people do not get, because that's exactly what we don't talk about enough. Of course, people talk about, and that's the topic that enough people don't talk about. Now, over the years, some of the topics that have picked up steam are manifestation, mindset, leadership, etc., etc., etc. But we rarely talk about this energetic container we return to every single night. And I share this from my own experience, because when Vinay and I got married 15 years ago, neither of us had any idea who we were actually marrying. And no, that does not mean what you think it means. I'm not talking about deception or red flags or some kind of dramatic twist. I am talking about something much, much, much deeper. What I'm referring to is that we had no idea who we would become. And it is the same for anybody that's getting into any relationship with any other person. None of us have any idea who the other person will become several years down the line. I mean, let alone the other person. We have no idea who we will end up becoming several years down the line. If you asked me 15 years ago if I ever knew that this is who I would become 15 years later, I had no clue. I had no idea. So that is what I mean when I say we had no idea who we would become. Now, if you want more of our origin story, we've both recorded. Yes, he came on my podcast a couple of years ago, and we recorded two full conversations together. That's episode 21 and episode 23 on this podcast. I will link those in the show notes if you want the backstory and the early years of our meeting, how we fell in love, how we got married, so on and so forth. So you can get caught up on our story. And I also have an entire story highlights on my Instagram. You can go catch up there as well, I guess. And yes, I also did mention about sharing about our 15 years anniversary on my Instagram, in my newsletter, and my LinkedIn. So I'm going to link some of those in the show notes as well. Feel free to browse through anything that catches your eye, because in each of these spaces and places, I have shared a few insights and takeaways that I'm sure is going to help you as well. Now, going back to the topic at hand, a few days ago, I was looking at a photo of ours from our early days, and I couldn't help but wonder that, of course, we looked so certain, we looked so confident, and we were so sure of what we wanted in life and also from each other. While to a larger extent, that's true, to a larger extent, that isn't true either. Because in many ways, we were absolutely certain, sure, exactly knew what we wanted from life. But at the same time, we also had no clue how consequential this one single decision to choose a life partner really is. And no, I'm not talking about it in the same way that society frames it. It's not about the wedding, it's not about the aesthetics, it's not about the checklist, it's not about, building a successful life with a person who has financial stability, who is mature enough, etc., etc., etc. But what I am referring to is something deeper. What I mean to talk about is in terms of the identity trajectory. And no one, not a single person, had ever spoken to me about it until I went on this journey myself and found out what it actually means when the single most important decision you make in your life is choosing the life partner you're going to spend the rest of your life with. And what I mean in terms of identity trajectory, it's not just who you are going to end up marrying, but it's also who you will become in order to keep growing alongside another evolving human. And that is the part that we had no idea about. I had not watched this on television. I had not watched this in any movies. Nobody ever talked about it. Nobody ever speaks about it. And yet, even in all of our cluelessness, we absolutely got this one thing right, that we were never afraid of changing, but somewhere deep down, we were always afraid of staying the same. Because one thing that I've noticed time and time again is that most people panic when their partners start to change, start to evolve. And as humans, we are meant to evolve and change. We are never meant to stay the same. But relationships wobble when one partner starts to evolve, whether it is when ambitions shift, when interests change, when someone wakes up one fine day and says, I think I want something different out of my life. I think there is more to my life than what we have imagined so far. And that's when actually insecurities flare up and partners cling to one another, to that version of their partner that they fell in love with, not with the version that's slowly evolving and changing. Again, one thing that I have come to realize in my life is that in a high performance life, in a highly successful, when I say highly successful, I mean highly holistically successful life, stagnation is actually a real threat. And people don't realize that. So, if one person is evolving and the other person stays the same, that's a real threat. And there's something I call the 5 year identity shift. So, roughly every 3 to 5 years, we become different humans because our priorities shift, our hormones change, our career lenses evolve, our spiritual depth expands, and our tolerance for any kind of nonsense and bullshit decreases. And not to forget, our definition of success matures as well. And I would actually be concerned if that isn't what your life looks like every 3 to 5 years. But instead, if you try to keep your partner inside the box you found them, 10, 15, 20 years ago, you're going to suffocate the very person who is supposed to be your co-founder in this life. And that suffocation does not always look dramatic either. More often than not, it looks like subtle resentment or quiet withdrawal or polite distance. Like how many people I know today, especially some of my high achieving working moms, their relationship with their partners is nothing more than a transactional, highly functional roommates co-living together in the same house, taking care of logistics, schedules, and their kids. Because over time, the distance that was once created has now become their ceiling. So many a times when I'm in conversation with my clients, this question inevitably comes up. They ask themselves, did I pick the right person? And I always have them reevaluate that question with a reframe. Instead of asking, did we pick the right person? Ask yourself, are we willing to keep choosing who we are both becoming? Because that is a question that is going to completely change how you look at not just your relationship with your partner, but also your entire life, because that's where the real work begins. Because speaking from my own experience, 16 years ago, when my husband and I met, we were two ambitious, opinionated, and slightly clueless humans. And I was in grad school at that point of time. He was deep in his career, and we both thought that ambition was our personality. And we actually fell in love with who we were then. But what I had never ever heard anyone say is that that version of you is going to die. That version of you that both of you fell in love with, that version is going to die. Not once, not twice, but multiple times. Because the woman that I was at 25 could not run the business I run today, could not raise the babies that I raise today, and could not handle the level of success that I have created in my life right now. And the same is true for my husband. The man he was at 28 could not be the kind of father he is today, could not be the kind of husband he is today, and could not lead the way he leads right now. And I have never imagined some of the things that he is taking on in his own life the way he is today. And that's exactly why I don't say this lightly when I say that we didn't just grow together, we in fact outgrew each other several times. And that's where most marriages quietly fracture, because people expect stability, but growth is anything but stable. Growth is the most destabilizing experience that you're going to go through. And that said, I want to share with you something that I share with my clients. This is what I call the identity death cycle, because as I said, every 3 to 5 years, we go through these cycles, various stages in the cycle. So you might want to take a few minutes to even just tap into what season, what phase, what stage of this cycle are you and your partner navigating. And in the interest of this episode, I'm going to super simplify this framework so as to not confuse you and also to keep it pretty straightforward for you. But I take my clients much deeper as we work through some of these frameworks. So, stage one is identity disruption, stage two is resistance, stage three, recalibration, and stage four is reintegration. And I can tell you for a fact, based on my own experiences and from watching dozens and dozens of couples, because I am a master pattern recognizer, if I may say so myself, is that most couples survive stage one, they fight in stage two, they silently disconnect in stage three, and they either consciously rebuild in stage four, or they just continue to coexist from that point onward. And like I said, we have been through this cycle over and over and over and over again, especially as we navigate various seasons and various phases in our own lives. Whether it was the career pivots, whether it was becoming parents, moving cities and states, making the most illogical decisions, building businesses, and the financial commitments and financial risks that we were taking, as well as spiritual awakenings. And through all of these phases, there were seasons where I was expanding and my hobby felt stable, because expansion, again, is not always going to feel stable. It feels wobbly more often than not. And there were seasons where he was taking massive risks and I had to become the anchor. And this is where the real ROI of your relationship shows up. It's not just in romance, it's not just in the bedroom, but this is actually what your emotional intimacy looks like in a partnership, in a relationship, in a marriage. It's what it looks like in regulation. Because if your nervous system does not feel safe with your partner at your own home, you can never lead as boldly as you could be outside. No matter how much of a brave face you put on, no matter how much of a facade you wear and walk out into the world. And that, simply put, is the neuroscience of your relationship. And in case you're wondering, what is this ROI in partnership that you're talking about, Kusum? I do have an equation that I want to walk you through, because then it is all going to start make even more sense, because this isn't just emotional. While for some people it can just be all based on emotion, but for many high performing women who are all about strategy, I want to ground this in real equation that is going to calm your nervous system. So let's take a look at what that equation looks like. So go ahead, grab a paper and pen and make a note of it, or open that notes app on your phone and type it out. Your partnership ROI is equal to emotional safety multiplied by shared vision multiplied by identity flexibility. And if any of these elements in your equation is a zero, then your entire equation, that is your entire product, that is your entire partnership, is going to collapse. And the way you want to look at each of these elements is, well, actually, you know what? Let's talk through each of them. When I say emotional safety, can you bring your ugly doubts and fears and questions into your home and into your bedroom even? Or do you have to filter yourself? That single question is going to give you a full picture of how safe you feel emotionally in your relationship. Next up, shared vision. Are you both building toward the same mountain, the same goal, or are you both climbing different ones quietly? And the final element of this equation, identity flexibility. Can you let yourself and or your partner evolve, or do you or your partner punish change? And this equation is a result of whatever I have experienced in my own life, and from me observing some of the most successful marriages and relationships, not just on paper, not just on Instagram, not just in photos, but you can really tell how truly in love and how truly successful a marriage, a relationship is, especially when you're paying closer attention to their patterns. So, trust me when I say, I have studied, literally studied successful relationships and marriages, and this equation is a result of that, including our own experiences. Because when one of us took any kind of career risks, the other expanded capacity instead of just contracting in capacity. And when one of us felt lost, the other continued to hold the vision. And we both feel the safest with each other to share not just our ambitions and dreams and visions, but also our deepest, darkest secrets, fears, doubts, and so on and so forth. And now, none of this is codependency, but instead, it is the most beautiful strategic alternation of both the masculine and the feminine energies, because some seasons are going to require structure, logic, and direction, and some are going to require intuition, space, and recalibration. And when I say seasons, I don't necessarily mean long periods of time. It can be well within a matter of a day. That's what I mean by seasons, because we need both the masculine structure, logic, direction, and the feminine intuition, space, and recalibration as we ebb and flow, as we are moving through different phases and cycles of the season. And this is one of the biggest mistakes that I see couples make over and over again, especially when we are strong, independent women with strong opinions, is that both of them trying to lead at the same time or both collapsing at the same time. But when you feel secure in your own leadership, you know that leadership can rotate without triggering any kind of insecurity in the other. Now, with all that said, I will reiterate one more time that I have had such an epiphany about what a soulmate really is. And that has been my ultimate profound realization that a soulmate is not somebody you find once and you're done, but a soulmate is actually the person who you are willing to consciously evolve with every step of the way. Because while romantic chemistry is extremely important in a relationship, intimacy is important in a relationship, conscious expansion, which isn't spoken about a lot, is just as important, if not more, because when conscious expansion is a part of your relationship, romantic chemistry, intimacy, inside and outside of your bedroom, and all of the other things that make a relationship whole and complete automatically falls into place, because we ourselves have had phases in our lives over the 15 years where we barely recognized ourselves, let alone each other, because parenthood changes you, success changes you, failure changes you, money changes you, spiritual growth changes you. So everything that happens to you over a course of 15 years when you are a conscious being is continuously and consistently going to change you. So the real question wasn't Are we still compatible? But the question evolved and it became, are we still willing to renegotiate identity, willing to reintroduce ourselves, willing to let go of the old version of ourselves and our marriage as well? Because, like I said, most people are extremely loyal to comfort of the known and the familiar. But when you choose this path of evolution, you don't know what's there. It's very uncertain. You don't know what is available to you on the other side of crossing that bridge. And yet, we still always choose evolution. And that single choice is the biggest differentiator between stagnation and expansion. And I was, in fact, joking about this in my newsletter that I sent out, that the universe didn't just hand us a perfect life. Yes, of course, it gave us the raw materials, but we still had to show up and do the work. So the 15 years of happy anniversary posts that you might have been seeing from me on Instagram or any other platform, that's been the result of 5,475 days of radical transparency, relentless refining, and choosing to grow in the same direction, even when the path was unknown, and even when the path was uncertain, and even when the path was uphill. And what actually makes these 15 years powerful isn't the timeline, but it's that we have changed so much in so many different ways and in so many different directions, from our jobs to cities to our worldviews to our perspectives to what was important to us back then to what is important to us now. And yet we still chose to stay side by side and do this thing called life together. And, oh, I also want to share another most important aspect here that, again, people don't necessarily give as much importance as it requires. So let's actually zoom out, because this isn't just about you. Your kids are actually watching you and your marriage and studying your marriage every single day, because their subconscious is picking up on what love and marriage and partnership and relationship, all of that looks like and is supposed to be and is supposed to mean by watching you and your partner. They're actually learning what love feels like under pressure, what conflict sounds like, what repair looks like, whether growth is actually threatening or if it's celebrated. And for high achieving moms listening to this, there's another aspect that you want to pay closer attention to, because if you are somebody who is working on your own visibility and promotion and influence at work, but if your home is emotionally disconnected, that split energy is actually going to show up in your body, whether it is as overthinking, whether it is as fatigue, whether it is as self-doubt. When your partnership is aligned, your cognitive load drops. But when that's not aligned, everything compounds and you end up carrying all of that, and in turn paying the biggest price for all of it without you even realizing. So, if you want to make significant changes in your career and if you want to make greater strides in your profession, then please make sure that you're also aligned when it comes to your partnership, because that's going to change everything. Now, don't mistake even for a second that I am not aware that many relationships, partnerships, and marriages are transactional at best. I know all too well that many women, many men even, are staying in marriages where there is no love, no intimacy, no loving interactions, but they are in the marriage for whatever reason, whether it is their kids, whether it is society, whether it is their parents, or whether it is that they don't know what else they want and this is all they know and they might as well suck it up and live inside of this the rest of their life. Now, I get it. I work with many of my clients who are going through this right now. Now, having all of that knowledge and information, I will still say this, that if you're listening to this episode and if you feel like your home base is an anchor right now pulling you down rather than a rocket fuel that's going to help you launch into your next phase, no matter what your current circumstance, here's some grounded homework, if you will, for you. Whatever your relationship with your partner looks like right now, what if you actually took away all the expectations and all judgment that you have and all notions and biases that you have about your partner and your relationship, and said, if you just sat down and had a normal conversation with your partner, do an audit, sit down with your partner, not for a date night, but just simply out of curiosity and actually as a person who's open and willing. Ask your partner, who are you becoming right now, and how can I support that version of you? It's not about logistics, but it's about the identity. When it's truly sad that these are not the type of conversations that many people have in their relationships, in their partnerships, in their marriage. And one of the things that I do want to put a stake in the ground and say that you have got to stop compromising. Take a look at your life and tell yourself that you're done with that word compromise. Because the way I look at compromise is that it usually means both people are losing a little. Instead, aim for alignment. How do both of your individual evolutions serve the life that you want to build? So go deeper and ask each other questions that's going to serve you. What season are we actually in right now? Are we in growth season, stability season, risk season, or recovery season? And this next question might sting a little, asking each other, where am I unconsciously or consciously limiting you? And be open and willing to listen to what the other person has to share without going on the defensive. And I will also make another bold claim that if you're somebody who spends thousands of dollars on your vacations and shopping sprees and branded goods, etc., but you spend $0 on your relationship health, then let me tell you that your priorities are absolutely fucked up. They are skewed because your partnership is your most valuable asset. And if you've never really made an honest effort to reclaim your relationship, your partnership, and to help it evolve in the best way possible, then what are you even doing? Again, trust me when I say that all of this works because everything that I've shared on this episode is lived experience. Exactly why I say that 15 years later, we are not the same people. And I've come to realize that that's the whole point. And I've also realized that we didn't survive by staying compatible, but we survived by staying curious, staying willing, and by choosing each other again and again and again at every identity shift. And if you are listening to this episode thinking, I want that, let me be the one to tell you that you don't need a new partner. What you need is a new level of consciousness inside the partnership you already have. Now, I'm not talking about relationships which absolutely have no future, because I am working with some of my clients who are going through some real hard shit in their relationships. But at the same time, Many of my clients and most of you listening to this episode right now just need a new level of consciousness inside the partnership that you already have. And if you want to take this even further, even deeper, then I'm going to leave you with a few journal prompts that can really help you get to the next level, starting with unlocking what's true for you right now. So, question number one is, what version of me did my partner originally fall in love with? Number two, where have I outgrown that version? This is something that many people never really get around to asking themselves in this lifetime. Number three, what part of my partner's evolution feels threatening to me? And number four, it's an unusual question, but an important one to ask. If my marriage was a business, what would I invest in this quarter? Now, don't rush through these questions, sit with them, journal your heart out, and burn that paper if you want to, and leave any judgments. Please don't judge your own responses. All of this is simply bringing to your awareness what you're unwilling to see and acknowledge and accept. So, what if you could really hold space for your own awareness? And if this conversation is actually stirring something deep inside you, and especially if you're a high achieving working mom who feels like you're carrying a lot quietly, then I want you to hear this one more time. Your partnership is not separate from your career, and your nervous system is not separate from your promotion, and your identity at home is not separate from your leadership at work. And if you've been trying to solve burnout, overthinking, guilt, or stagnation only through productivity hacks or communication tweaks, you are simply solving the surface layer. Because the real shift actually happens at the identity level, which is exactly why I have created a free masterclass. Discover 3 science-backed secrets to thrive as you, as a mom, and in your career without constant overthinking, overwhelm, guilt, or sacrifice. And inside this training, I break down the internal rewiring that actually allows you to lead powerfully at work, stay emotionally present at home, stop oscillating between ambition and guilt, and build success that doesn't cost you your nervous system or your relationship. So, if you're ready to stop surviving and start designing consciously, go register. I'm going to leave the link in the show notes. And maybe, just maybe, send this episode to your partner, not as pressure, but simply as an invitation, because the most powerful promotions don't just happen at work, they happen inside your identity first. On that note, I have to say that 15 years later, the universe still gets a 5-star review, and I will see you inside the training.
Thank you for joining me on another episode of this podcast. I appreciate your time, your presence, your commitment, and your willingness to embark on this journey of self discovery, transformation, and manifestation. If anything you heard today resonated with you, sparked new insights, or brought about aha moments, I'd love to hear all about them. So please share your thoughts by tagging me on social media at Passion Purpose Passport and follow me there for more inspiring content and connection. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button and show your support by liking, reviewing, and sharing this podcast. The more good we share with the world, the more the universe unfolds its magic for us. It's not just good karma, it's the universal law, aka Manifestation 101. By the way, you will receive my free manifestation meditation as a token of gratitude for sharing your reviews on iTunes. Take a screenshot before submitting and send it to my team at manifest@passionpurposepassport.com. On that note, align your mind, body, heart, and soul with your deepest desires for limitless possibilities. Remember, every step you take, every action you choose ripples through the universe, shaping the reality you wish to experience. Until next time, keep basking in the brilliance of your inner golden hour and keep manifesting miracles.